Welcome everyone to our first session of Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. We will be starting with our opening prayer. Thank you so much.
O God, my God, thou seest me enraptured and attracted towards thy glorious kingdom, enkindled with the fire of thy love amongst mankind, a herald of thy kingdom in these vast and spacious lands, severed from aught else save thee, relying on thee, abandoning rest and comfort, remote from my native home, a wanderer in these regions, a stranger fallen upon the ground, humble before thine exalted threshold, submissive toward the heaven of thine omnipotent glory, supplicating thee in the dead of night and at the break of dawn, entreating and invoking thee at morn and at eventide to graciously aid me to serve thy cause, to spread abroad thy teachings and to exalt thy word throughout the east and the west. O Lord, strengthen my back, enable me to serve thee with the utmost endeavor, and leave me not to myself, lonely and helpless in these regions. O Lord, grant me communion with thee in my lowliness, and be my companion in these foreign lands. Verily, thou art the confirmer of whomsoever thou willest in that which thou desirest. And verily, thou art the all-powerful, the omnipotent. Abdu'l-Bahá.
Hello, dear Saeed.
Beautiful.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. And welcome, and dear friends, if you are unmuted, just remember to mute yourselves. And remember, this is a very important remember, this is your class, okay? This is your class. So anytime you want to say something or jump in, you have a question, unmute yourself, ask away, okay? I don't feel upset or on any level, or this is your class. So without any further ado, we're going to get into it. I'm so excited. You have no idea how excited I have been waiting for this for so long. So let us start our study, okay? So we're going to be studying the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. And so, dear friends, every one of you should get one of these, the World Order of Bahá'u'lláh. If you don't have a World Order of Bahá'u'lláh, or if you have an older version, the World Order of Bahá'u'lláh, get a World Order of Bahá'u'lláh. So this is found, the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, which is the sixth letter, okay, of the Beloved Guardian, okay? The sixth letter of the Beloved Guardian in the World Order of Bahá'u'lláh letters. It starts on page 97, okay? It starts on page 97 in both texts, in both of them. So whichever one you get, interestingly, it starts on page 97. I think they designed it like that for consistency, okay? Okay, so first I have to do my acknowledgements and especially to my dear wife. And so first I want to thank the Beloved Guardian for everything, all his works, his ministry, his translations, his example to us. I also want to thank my wife, my dear wife, Mona Rohani Bayat. This presentation took almost a full year to do. And so her illimitable patience on me, especially while I was also presenting Advent, I was working on this, so her patience for me. My children, Ella, Emma, and William, I want to thank them. And my mama, I love my mama. She also edited this whole presentation. So you're going to see how many slides, how much writing and everything. So I want to thank my mama and always my dad. I want to thank him. He's always a great, and you're going to see throughout this presentation, there's many areas in Islam and Zoroastrianism and other topics. He's a great source to turn to. My brother, Dr. Bafel, I turned to him for editing, and also when I wrote the letter to the Supreme Body to send the presentation to them, he helped edit that letter. As always, to our dear National Spiritual Assembly, always ever grateful for their guidance. And these are my three lights I always pray to: Thomas Breakwell, John Esselmont, and William Sutherland Maxwell and May Maxwell. These are the lights that I always turn to and say my prayers to. So I hope you each one of you have, as they say, heroes that you turn to, but these are my personal ones. So I just want to thank you. So those are my acknowledgements. Just wanted to share that. Our session today, we are going to be studying, why study this, right? Of all the letters, why should we be studying Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, especially at this point in time? And why, and as a Baha'i, why should we study it? So we're going to have an introduction as well as study paragraphs 1 through 3 today, okay? So if you haven't, if you haven't found Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, if you don't have a copy, you still have a week to it, coming up in next week, okay? Get your own copy. And do not be scared of highlighting or making notes in your dispensation. That's what they are there for, okay? Okay, some people say, oh, they're such beautiful books. I remember Mr. Dunbar, when I was in the World Center, he said, Ehsan, your Baha'i books are so clean. Well, every Baha'i book should be highlighted and notes taken in them, and pages bent showing that you've read them. And I was like, all my notes are in my files. But he says, Ehsan, take your notes, go through them, really read them and deeply. So that's, I adjure you, don't hesitate, doing that in your Baha'i books. Okay, moving on. Some people have asked me, Ehsan, what is this Crimson Academy? I've heard about this before. So I just wanted to add one slide, just overview. It was founded in 2011 by myself, Ehsan. Its mission is to create a space online for participants to study deeply the writings, thoughtfully study deeply the writings, advance their knowledge, deepen their understanding of the teachings, and increase their vision. So this is what it was. I presented it to the National Spiritual Assembly and the Supreme Body, and they both loved the idea and have written me letters on that. The Crimson Academy, which is really myself, I called it Crimson Academy because what can I call it? Ehsan Bayat, So I wanted to have a name, right? So the Crimson Academy has collated all the materials, the notes, questions, videos, and materials to study a myriad of different courses. That's what we've done. The Academy encourages the friends to really immediately dive in, use these materials, answer questions, acquire a greater understanding. And uniquely, the Crimson Academy is always free, and as opposed to any other resource that is available. So that's just a quick overview of what it is. So now getting into introduction, purpose of study of the world order letters, okay? So I found this is an extract from Horace Hawley, and this is coming from Baha'i News, right? So one of the things when I was studying Advent to Divine Justice, I read all of the Baha'i News, and this was published in the Baha'i News, and it was the purpose of the world order letters. So what is the purpose of them, right? So this was an extract from Mr. Horace Hawley, who later was given the rank of Hand of the Cause of God. He was a secretary of the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States of America. So our first reader Dear Zamruhi Jan, you have a wonderful voice. If you could kindly read this slide for us. Thank you.
Thank you. The purpose of the World Order Letters from Introduction by Horace Hawley. The letters published under the title of the World Order of Baha'u'lláh unfold a clear vision of the relation between the Baha'i community and the entire process of social evolution under the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. In the World Order of Baha'u'lláh, we are enabled to perceive the significance of the new dimension which Baha'u'lláh gave to religion in this era. The supremacy of divine law in civilization, fulfilling that supremacy which in previous dispensations, religion had exercised over individual souls. The World Order of Baha'u'lláh reveals the most significant truth of this era, namely that the old conception of religion, which separated spirituality from the fundamental functions of civilization, compelling men to abide by conflicting principles of faith, of politics and of economics, has been forever destroyed. The command, render unto God that which is of God, and unto Caesar that which is of Caesar, has been annulled by the law of the oneness of humanity revealed by Baha'u'lláh.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So before we continue with these little bit of introduction presented by Horace Hawley, I just wanted to share one very quick insight. In our past study of Advent to Divine Justice, the Advent to Divine Justice can be called the living the life, the how-to manual of how to be a Baha'i. It explored rectitude of conduct, chaste and holy life, freedom from racial prejudices, and how to teach the cause. So it's the how-to manual of to live the life and say, I am a Baha'i, I believe in Baha'u'lláh. It's the how-to manual, okay? But what is dispensation of Baha'u'lláh? The dispensation of Baha'u'lláh is the fundamental beliefs of what does it mean to be a Baha'i. So now this is really what we're going to get at in this course. If you say, I am a Baha'i, what do you believe? And so this is going to be very exciting, all the real understandings of what does the faith stand for, okay? So why should we study the World Order of Baha'u'lláh? And this is from Mr. Horace Hawley, his letter. He says, and this is a quote from the beloved guardian, it says, to strive to obtain a more adequate understanding of the significance of Baha'u'llah's stupendous revelation must, it is my unalterable conviction, remain the first obligation and the object of the constant endeavor of each one of its loyal adherents. An exact and thorough comprehension of so vast a system, so sublime a revelation, so sacred a trust, is for obvious reasons beyond the reach and ken of our finite minds. We can, however, and it is our bounden duty to seek to derive fresh inspiration and added sustenance as we labor for the propagation of his faith through a clear apprehension of the truths it enshrines and the principles on which it is based. So why should we study this World Order of Baha'u'lláh? It is to strive to have an adequate, more adequate understanding of this revelation. This is why we got to do it. We got to study this dispensation, these World Order letters, to have a more clear understanding of who is the Blessed Bab, who is Baha'u'lláh, who is Abdu'l-Bahá, what is this administrative order, and how is it tied to this new institute process that is being unfolded. And that, my dear friend, is going to be in our presentation, because that is also coming and being unfolded from our supreme body, right? This new agencies of the clusters and everything. So this is all part and parcel of the administrative process, which is also going to be in our presentation. So we'll see how that fits in this unfolding revelation coming. So it's going to be very exciting. What is the implication of the Baha'i message? The faith of Baha'u'lláh should indeed be regarded, if we wish to be faithful to the tremendous implications of its message, as the culmination of a cycle, the final stage in a series of successive, of preliminary and progressive revelations. These, beginning with Adam and ending with the Bab, have paved the way and anticipated with an ever-increasing emphasis the advent of that day of days in which he who is the promise of all ages should be made manifest. It's the culmination. And we're going to be exploring, and if you recall from our study in Advent of Divine Justice, how many times did the beloved guardian say, this is the day, this is the day, and how many times in the opening of Gleanings from the Writings of Baha'u'lláh did His Holiness Baha'u'lláh say, this is the day. And so this is the day of the twin manifestations, the Blessed Bab, His Holiness Baha'u'lláh. And so this is the culmination, the anticipated day of the Day of Days, one that has been spoken by all past revelations. So this is going to be a wonderful exploration of that theme of progressive revelation. Now, our next reader, okay? Our next reader, Riaz John, is our next reader. If you could so kindly go for it.
What is the most distinctive feature of the Baha'i dispensation? There can be no doubt that the claim to the twofold station ordained for the Bab by the Almighty, a claim which he himself has so boldly advanced, which Baha'u'lláh has repeatedly affirmed, and to which the will and testament of Abdu'l-Bahá has finally given the sanction of its testimony, constitutes the most distinctive feature of the Baha'i dispensation. Indeed, the greatness of the Bab consists primarily not in his being the divinely appointed forerunner of so transcendent a revelation, but rather in his having been invested with the powers inherent in the inaugurator of a separate religious dispensation, and in his wielding to a degree unrivaled by the messengers gone before him, the scepter of independent prophethood.
Very well read. Thank you, Riaz John. So something, I know we're just touching on these paragraphs, but one thing we're going to be touching on, there's a whole section on the Blessed Bab. And one thing that this Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh course does, that I hope it accomplishes, it gives you a greater love, awe of the Blessed Bab. It is something that when you really study the life and the writings and his brief yet majestic ministry, when you really study it, the only words that can come out of you is awe. You're just like, and wonderment. And I hope this course will give that feeling to you, because it gave me that feeling when I was putting this that section of the Blessed Bab together, because it's just so incredible is the Blessed Bab. And we have so little of his writings in English in selections from the writings of the Bab. And so even then, the writings of the Blessed Bab is enormous. And that will come once more writings have been translated by of Baha'u'lláh, Abdu'l-Bahá, and when the Supreme Body, Universal Justice says, those will come. But right now, we just have just the selections from the writings of the Bab. Okay, moving on. Upon what rests the power of the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh? I love all these questions that was very nicely done in Baha'i News. So this is a question. It says, upon what rests the power of the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh? And this is the answer. It says, in accordance with the principle of progressive revelation, every manifestation of God must needs vouchsafe to the peoples of his day a measure of divine guidance ampler than any which a preceding and less receptive age could have received or appreciated. For this reason, and not for any superior merit, which the Baha'i faith may be said to inherently possess, does this prophecy bear witness to the unrivaled power and glory with which the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh has been invested. So it's on this principle of progressive revelation that it has been invested. So what rests the power of the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh? It's on this principle of progressive revelation. And it says, and it's not based upon any superior merit, which the Baha'i faith may be said to inherently possess. They are just based solely upon this fundamental principle of progressive revelation. And we're going to really get a very solid understanding of what that principle is. And what is one of the major beliefs of our faith? That Baha'u'lláh should, notwithstanding the overwhelming intensity of his revelation, be regarded as essentially one of these manifestations of God, never to be identified with that invisible reality, the essence of divinity itself, is one of the major beliefs of our faith. A belief which should never be obscured and the integrity of which no one of its followers should allow to be compromised. So that Baha'u'lláh, the manifestation of God for this day and age, should not be associated with the same rank and title as that unknowable essence, that invisible reality. That invisible reality is so far removed. There's even a term in the writings called Sadratul Muntaha, the tree beyond which there is no passing. Even the manifestations of God cannot pass beyond that tree, as they say. It is symbolism. So even the manifestations of God have no right to go even to that level or station. God is beyond. So what a beautiful metaphor and symbolism. So here in this extract, Baha'u'lláh is saying that this revelation, the manifestations of God, should not be identified with that reality. They are the mirrors. How can they be identified with the sun? It's no comparison. And the last one, the last page extract is Mr. Horace Hawley's love and his tribute to the beloved guardian. So Mr. David Monk, if you could read this one for us, it's his love appreciation. Go for it.
I'm glad you found me. Thanks a lot.
There you go.
Shoghi Effendi's exposition of the teachings, his unique realization of the ultimate aim and purpose of Baha'u'llah's revelation, are in no static commentary upon a sacred text, but the very essence of world statesmanship evoked in the hour of man's direct need. Successive communications from Shoghi Effendi, and especially those devoted to the subject of world order, in themselves contain the highest demonstration that Baha'u'llah's spirit continues to bless his cause and assure his victory in the reconciliation of the peoples of earth and their union in one faith and one order.
Very well read. Thank you very much, David.
You're
So
welcome.
this is Mr. Horace Hawley's, and if you pick up any one of the World Order Baha'u'llah's, the very beginning of it, the introduction, introduction is the first 2.5 pages is introduction by Mr. Horace Hawley. And so this was just a brief extracts and coming from Mr. Horace Hawley. So this is from the beloved guardian. This is says, on behalf of Shoghi Effendi, and this is in the compilation, the importance of deepening in our knowledge and understanding of the faith. So this is what the beloved guardian is really saying. It says, Shoghi Effendi was also pleased to learn of the response which his last general communication, the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh addressed to the friends in the West, has awakened in your community. It is his hope that the believers will, through their careful and continued study of this important communication, acquire a new vision of the cause and will be stimulated to redouble their efforts for the expansion and consolidation of their work for their faith. I love it. I truly love it. You know what I really love about this one extract is because almost every letter of the beloved guardian, it always comes, he always pours out his love. He says, I love you, I love you. I hope this inspires you to redouble any efforts that you were doing. So whatever you were doing, he's always calling upon you to redouble your efforts. So we should always be thinking about what are we doing and how can we constantly do more, redouble our efforts. And so this one little short letter of the beloved guardian, he's summoning us to action again, right? Redouble your efforts for expansion and consolidation of the work. Again, the beloved, this is from Mr. David Hoffman, the late member of the Universal House of Justice, in an essay. And this wonderful essay is called Shoghi Effendi, Expounder of the Word of God, published in Study of the Writings of Shoghi Effendi. So this is the late Universal House of Justice member, Mr. David Hoffman. This is what he wrote. The Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, a letter which the guardian himself described as a statement of certain fundamental verities, certain truths, which lie at the basis of our faith. It has been referred to as Shoghi Effendi's own confession of faith, his own confession of faith. It is the appointed expounder's presentation of the stations of Baha'u'lláh, the Bab, and Abdu'l-Bahá, of the transition from the heroic and apostolic age of the faith to its formative age, through the indissoluble link of the will and testament of Abdu'l-Bahá, a summation of the spirit and chief provisions of that historic document, and a marvelous presentation of the unique and distinguishing features of this supreme revelation, which make it unlike the dispensations of the past. He emphasizes the twin institutions of the guardianship and the Universal House of Justice, permanently and fundamentally united in their aims. Without deep study of this basic document, no Baha'i can claim to be truly knowledgeable of his faith. I repeat, without the deep study of this basic document, no Baha'i can claim to be truly knowledgeable of his faith. So every Baha'i has to study this if you really call yourself a Baha'i. Okay? And this short paragraph is one of the best summaries of Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. It covers everything. The fundamental verities, the stations of the Blessed Baha'u'lláh, Abdu'l-Bahá, the administrative order, and how it's all tied together. And also talks about the dispensations of the past and how they're related. He also emphasizes the institutions of the guardianship and the Universal House of Justice. What a brilliant summary paragraph by Mr. David Hoffman. So this is from the beloved guardian, another letter on the importance of studying this letter at Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, concerning the institution of the guardianship and its true position in the administrative order of the cause. The guardian would urge you to make a careful study of the subject in his last general letter addressed to the West and published under the title of the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. In the last part of this important treatise, you will find an adequate and authoritative analysis of the origins, nature, and function of that institution and of its unique significance in the world order of Baha'u'lláh. You should also recommend your fellow believers to better acquaint themselves with the contents of that same letter, so that their vision of the cause and their understanding of its present-day administration may acquire in strength and in depth. So this letter will expand your vision of what this cause is. This is what the beloved guardian is saying. Your understanding, your scope of what this revelation of Baha'u'lláh, this dispensation of Baha'u'lláh is. So this is what beloved guardian is saying here. And another one, I just sharing all these references to show you how important it is to study this letter. And this is Shoghi Effendi's monumental letter. This is from the beloved guardian. The dispensation of Baha'u'lláh holds a special place among his writings. He described it as an invaluable supplement to the covenants of both Baha'u'lláh and Abdu'l-Bahá. He feels indeed that the time has come for the German believers to acquire a thorough knowledge as well as a full understanding of such important tablets as Baha'u'llah's Book of Covenant and Abdu'l-Bahā's Will and Testament, both of which constitute the very bedrock upon which the entire administrative system of the faith has been raised and established. As to the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh, it also constitutes an invaluable supplement to these aforementioned tablets. So an invaluable supplement to Baha'u'llah's Book of the Covenant, the Kitab Ad, as well as Abdu'l-Bahā's Will and Testament. So these are the charter documents of the administrative order, the Baha'u'llah's Book of the Covenant and Abdu'l-Bahā's Will and Testament. So this is an invaluable supplement. Cannot put a value on it, as they say. And again, from the beloved guardian, linked with this is the fact which he mentioned in his cable, that the Baha'is need to be deepened in their knowledge and understanding of the Will and Testament of Abdu'l-Bahá. They should study this and the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh, for it is obvious that they do not, for the most part, fully visualize the greatness, the glory, the power, and the protection which have been conferred on this faith through the institutions provided for in the Master's will. Another thing that I also want to share, dear friends, in this presentation, you will get a fuller picture of the power and the awesomeness of the institution of the Universal House of Justice. That is another thing that we've really gone into depth in the sense that in our study of the Constitution of the Universal House of Justice, what powers do they have and what role do they have and how are they protected in the sense? Where does it say they're protected? And I put all of that together in this presentation so that all those extracts, when we go through it, because that's all here also in the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. This is from former Universal House of Justice member, Mr. Ali Nakhjavani. What did he say? He said, Shoghi Effendi had often said to hands of the cause of God and visiting pilgrims that his dispensation of Baha'u'lláh was like his will and testament. Abdu'l-Bahá, in her The Priceless Pearl, quotes Shoghi Effendi as having indicated that he had said all he had to say in many ways in the dispensation. So he had said everything. What more could you say? This is his confession of belief in Baha'u'lláh, his confession of belief in the Blessed Bab. So this is what the beloved guardian, his testament of faith is the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. And this again is from Mr. David Hoffman. The Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh has been referred to as Shoghi Effendi's own confession of faith. Without deep study of this basic document, no Baha'i can claim to be truly knowledgeable of his or her faith. Indeed, no one can have a deep, authentic knowledge of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh without study of all these expository and exegetical works of the guardian. That's a hard word. Exegetical works of the guardian. So there's really, as a Baha'i, we have to really have a deep and authentic knowledge, deep study. And I hope this course helps facilitate that study. And you'll see as we go through it. There we go. Those were a bunch of extracts that I collated showing the importance of studying this letter, okay? So now we're getting into an introduction. Striving to acquire a more adequate understanding of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh is identified by Shoghi Effendi as the first duty and the focus of sustained efforts of every follower of the Baha'i faith. Although a full comprehension of such a revelation is beyond the limits of our understanding, a clear understanding of its basic truths will empower us to derive fresh inspiration and to take further nourishment that in turn will support and maintain our services for the cause. So this is really an effort to help us have a greater understanding of what this cause is. What do we believe? And so also, I hope this cause will also help you in your presentations on the faith when you are teaching, you know? So this is also my hope. So coming up to now, we're getting into a little bit more closer, deeper on specifically dispensation. So we've done why study dispensation. Now we're going into introductions, okay? So Farzad Jan, if you could read this slide for us.
Yes, sure. Towards assisting us to fulfill this obligation, the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, wrote the Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh, letter in 1934 to the Baha'is of the West, which was published in 1938 with a selection of his other letters in a book entitled The World Order of Baha'u'lláh. The Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh provides an accurate and clear description of the fundamental verities of the Baha'i faith concerning the station of its central figures, as well as the twin crowning institutions of the guardianship and the universal house of justice. Grasping and upholding these verities will enrich the spiritual life of the individual.
Thank you, Farzad Jan. So really, this in essence, should be the fundamental basic book that every Baha'i should grasp, because to understand who the Blessed Bab is, Baha'u'lláh, Abdu'l-Bahá, the beloved guardian, universal house of justice. This is really what this text is. So this is from Priceless Pearl, and this is such a beautiful, beautiful book. I encourage every one of you to read Priceless Pearl, and it's online. It's in the Baha'i Library website. This is Abdu'l-Bahá Khanum's remarks in the Priceless Pearl, referring to the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh in lofty terms, such as weighty treaties. We were never the same again, and would kill puniness of soul forever. And that Shoghi Effendi considered he had said all he had to say in many ways in the dispensation. So this is what she writes. The weighty treatise known as the Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh, written in 1934, burst upon the Baha'is like a blinding white light. I remember when I first read it, I had the most extraordinary feeling as if the whole universe had suddenly expanded around me, and I was looking out into its dazzling star-filled immensity. All the frontiers of our understanding flew outwards. The glory of this cause and the true station of its central figures were revealed to us, and we were never the same again. One would have thought that the stunning impact of this one communication from the guardian would kill puniness of soul forever. However, Shoghi Effendi felt in his inmost heart about his other writings. I know from his remarks that he considered he had said all he had to say in many ways in the dispensation. He said many other things after dispensation. It's not that that was his last thing that he wrote, but in essence, he said what he really needed to say in the dispensation. It was his testament of belief, his testament of faith. And here, this is in Baha'i News. It says the friends throughout the United States and Canada are informed that the guardian has written a general letter addressed to the believers throughout the West, dated February 8th, 1934, copies of which in pamphlet form are now being distributed to all recognized Baha'is. In this communication, Shoghi Effendi explains the fundamental truths of the Baha'i faith. His words constitute a new and precious source of inspiration as well as accurate knowledge. I like that, as accurate knowledge. Of course, the beloved guardian has accurate knowledge. I like how they added that on at the end. But this is what the announcement came when the letter, Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, came out. So this is when it was published in Baha'i News. And it was dated, the letter is dated February 8th, 1934. So there we are, dear friends. That was my brief synopsis, why study it, and now introduction. So now actually let's get into the first 3 paragraphs and actually study our first 3 paragraphs for tonight. Miss Yuda Miller, if you could be our first reader for tonight, starting off paragraph 1. Thank you so much.
To the beloved of God and the handmaids of the merciful throughout the West, fellow laborers in the divine vineyard. On the 23rd of May of this auspicious year, the Baha'i world will celebrate the 90th anniversary of the founding of the faith of Baha'u'lláh. We who at this hour find ourselves standing on the threshold of the last decade of the first century of the Baha'i era might well pause to reflect upon the mysterious dispensations of so august, so momentous a revelation. How vast, how entrancing the panorama which the revolution of 80 years and 10 unrolls before our eyes. Its towering grandeur well now overwhelms us. To merely contemplate this unique spectacle, to visualize, however dimly, the circumstances attending the birth and gradual unfoldment of the supreme theophany, to recall even in their barest outline the woeful struggle that proclaimed its rise and accelerated its march, will suffice to convince every unbiased observer of those eternal truths that motivate its life and which must continue to impel it forward under its archives and until it achieves its destined ascendancy.
Beautifully read. Thank you, Miss Yuda. So here the beloved guardian is addressing the beloved of the God and the handmaids of the merciful throughout the West. 23rd of May is the declaration of the Bab, and he's celebrating the 90th anniversary of the founding of the faith of Baha'u'lláh. So 90 years after 1844, 90 years after 1844 is 1934. So this is when this letter was being written. So he's saying 90th anniversary. We who at this hour find ourselves standing on this threshold of the last decade of the first century. Century is 1844 to 1944. So the last decade coming up to 1944 of the Baha'i era might well pause to reflect upon the mysterious dispensations of so august, so momentous a revelation. So we need to pause and reflect on this. How vast, how entrancing the panorama which the revolution of 80 years and 10 unrolls before our eyes. 80 is 80 and 10 is 90, unrolls before our eyes. Its towering grandeur well nigh overwhelms us. Towering grandeur of the whole faith dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. To merely contemplate this unique spectacle, to visualize, however dimly, the circumstances attending the birth and gradual unfoldment of this supreme theophany, to recall even in their barest outline the woeful struggles that proclaimed its rise and accelerated its march, will suffice to convince every unbiased observer of those eternal truths. And that's a big, important point. This is what the whole dispensation is about, those eternal truths. So the fundamental verities. And it's also important, this one too, every unbiased. You cannot be biased and then approach this revelation and have, your own thoughts and everything. So the beloved guardian says, this, if you are unbiased and approach it, then you will get it. So this says, will suffice to convince every unbiased observer of those eternal truths that motivate its life and which must constitute to impel it forward until it achieves its destined ascendancy. Okay, so that was paragraph 1. Okay, let's get to another reader. We have Miss Deborah. Miss Deborah, so good to have you. Go for it, Miss Deborah.
Dominating the entire range of this fascinating spectacle towers the incomparable figure of Baha'u'lláh, transcendental in his majesty, serene, awe-inspiring, unapproachably glorious, allied though subordinate in rank, and invested with the authority of presiding with him over the destinies of this supreme dispensation. There shines upon this mental picture the youthful glory of the Bab, infinite in his tenderness, irresistible in his charm, unsurpassed in his heroism, matchless in the dramatic circumstances of his short yet eventful life. And finally, there emerges, though on a plane of its own and in a category entirely apart from the one occupied by the twin figures that preceded him, the vibrant, the magnetic personality of Abdu'l-Bahá, reflecting to a degree that no man, however exalted his station, can hope to rival, the glory and power with which they who are the manifestations of God are alone endowed.
Beautifully read, Miss Deborah. So in this one synoptic paragraph, the beloved guardian here is summarizing the station of Baha'u'lláh, the station of the Blessed Bab, and the station of Abdu'l-Bahá. What an incredible paragraph where he highlights the central figures in each one in this paragraph. It says, dominating the entire range of this fascinating spectacle. So Baha'u'lláh is standing predominant, dominating the entire range. And this towering, incomparable figure cannot be compared to anyone else. This figure of Baha'u'lláh, transcendental. He transcends over all in his majesty, serene, peaceful, calm, awe-inspiring, causes you to be full of awe, unapproachably glorious. Then another one, ally, though subordinate in rank, is the Blessed Bab, subordinate in rank, but invested with the authority of presiding with him over the destinies of this supreme dispensation. There shines upon this mental picture the youthful glory of the Bab, infinite in his tenderness, irresistible in his charm, unsurpassed in his heroism, matchless in the dramatic circumstances of his short yet eventful life. Something I'm going to tie to the Blessed Bab, and this is just because we've completed a very comprehensive study of Advent to Divine Justice. And this is off the top of my head, and I'll give you the exact page. But when the beloved guardian mentions America, and there's one, but specifically the American youth, and there's one paragraph in Advent to Divine Justice where he's writing to the youth. And I think it's like paragraph 102 off the top of my head. I don't have my Advent here, it's in my house. But I think it's paragraph 102 off the top of my head. But why I bring this up is because the similar language is the same author, obviously, the beloved guardian, but the similar language of the qualities of the Blessed Bab and addressing what the youth are. So it's having that youthful, being youth, right? That youthful, that energy and that heroism. And we're going to be also talking about, and so I just want you to think about this tie-in, because when the youth have that energy, they have that zeal, they have that dynamism, and all those qualities are mentioned by the beloved guardian in Advent of Divine Justice. And so they're all exhibited by the Blessed Bab, and it's going to be addressed here in Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. And finally, there emerges, though on a plane of its own, and in a category entirely apart from the one occupied by the twin figures that preceded him, the vibrant, the magnetic personality of Abdu'l-Bahá, reflecting to a degree that no man, however exalted his station, can hope to rival the glory and power with which they who are the manifestations of God are alone endowed. This is something that so many people, including Baha'is, including myself, cannot understand the station of Abdu'l-Bahá. We could just, he's on a different station. To really have a proper comprehensive understanding of the station of Abdu'l-Bahá is beyond us. Okay? We could say he's on a different station. He's not on the same station as a manifestation of God. He's not on the same station as man. He's in somewhere in the middle, really. And he is the summation and culmination of all the virtues. He is the ultimate ideal of what it means to be a Baha'i. And so we're going to really get into as close study, and I've pulled all the sources to try to, especially in the centenary year of the passing of Abdu'l-Bahá, to try to get as close to an understanding of who is Abdu'l-Bahá, who is this incredible central figure of our faith. So, so that's really will be a gift to the friends of this class to try to, because I wanted to also know, who is this incredible figure that we have portraits of, Abdu'l-Bahá. So we'll get into that later. Paragraph 3. With Abdu'l-Bahā's ascension, and more particularly with the passing of his well-beloved and illustrious sister, the most exalted leaf, the last survivor of a glorious and heroic age, there draws to a close the first and most moving chapter of Baha'i history, marking the conclusion of the primitive, the apostolic age of the faith of Baha'u'lláh. It was Abdu'l-Bahá who, through the provisions of his weighty will and testament, has forged the vital link which must forever connect the age that just expired with the one we now live in, the transitional and formative period of the faith. A stage that must, in the fullness of time, reach its blossom and yield its fruit in the exploits and triumphs that are to herald the golden age of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh. So, dear friends, in our study of Advent of Divine Justice, we also talked about ages and cycles and heroic age, and we talked about the formative age and the golden age. But because it's brought up here in paragraph 3, I wanted to give you something new, something fresh to all, especially because my students, many of them have returned. So I wanted to give you something fresh and a more understanding of these different ages, cycles, epochs. What are they? And especially as we've entered into something called the 5th epoch, and in this Rizvan year. So what are these periods of time to understand all of that? So we'll be going through that. So in paragraphs 1 through 3, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi is highlighting the significance of the first 90-year period, the first 90 years of the Baha'i era, and identifies distinctive stages in the evolution of the faith towards its golden age. Okay? So there's distinctive stages in this evolution of the faith. So these are the major key points in the first paragraphs that we read. In the opening paragraph of the letter, the beloved guardian is reflecting on the evidences that convince every impartial observer. Remember, it was unbiased observer, so I used here impartial observer, of those eternal truths that motivate the life of the faith of Baha'u'lláh and must continue to drive it towards its destined sovereignty. So if you are truly unbiased and you truly study this letter, you will be convinced. This is what the beloved guardian said. These eternal truths, the eternal truths, are those aspects of a revelation that do not change from one dispensation to another. One of them could be called the golden rule, right? And something that is eternal. It doesn't change from one dispensation to the next. Golden rule. The beloved guardian outlines the station of the central figures of the Baha'i faith and highlights their distinction. This was in the paragraph that we just read. He's highlighting their station and their distinction. And then in the last paragraph, the beloved guardian addresses this. The heroic age started with the declaration of the Bab on the 23rd of May, 1844, and ended with the passing of Abdu'l-Bahá, 28th November, 1921. And then the beloved guardian said, more particularly with the passing of his well-beloved and illustrious sister. So it was more particularly that's really when the heroic age comes to a close. Okay? So moving on, dear friends. And just a few more notes. The formative age is the period of evolution of the faith towards unfoldment of its potential and the emergence of the world order envisaged by Baha'u'lláh. Right now, we're in the formative age. It's the transitional age, the iron age. These are all other terminology for it. The formative age consists of a number of epochs that would gradually emerge. And the golden age is the stage of perfection and realization of the goals of the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. The golden age is also, this is another thing that, dear friends, we talked about in Advent, is the golden age is also got stages within it too. It's not like we worked so hard in that formative age and there were so many epochs within it, and now we're finally at the golden age. The golden age also has stages within it too. So, and all of those come to a point. So this is the notes. Okay, so now we're going to get into our.
I have a question.
Please, Zamarie John, please.
So where does the apostolic age?
The apostolic age is also called the heroic age.
Thank you.
It's synonymous, okay?
Thank you.
Apostolic is for apostle, the apostles, the central figures, that period of central figures. So it's the same as the heroic age. Okay,
Question.
please, David.
Did the heroic age actually ended when the passing of the greatest holy leaf?
This is coming from paragraph 3. This is straight from the text. I believe paragraph 3. Let me pull this. I believe it says most exalted leaf. That is the translation. So it's also most exalted leaf, greatest holy leaf is the same synonymous here. Okay. So you're absolutely right, David. It's the passing of greatest holy leaf, Bahia Khanum, when she passed away. That is really the ending of the apostolic age, the heroic age, the primitive age. But in Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, it's called the most exalted leaf. Okay, so the beloved guardian also calls it the greatest holy leaf. There's really is all signs of his love for the sister of Abdu'l-Bahá. Thank you, David. Okay, moving on. So now we're going to explore this eternal truths. What is these eternal truths about that was mentioned in the opening paragraph? In the opening paragraph of his letter, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi reflects on the evidences that convince every impartial observer of those eternal truths that motivate the life of the faith of Baha'u'lláh and must continue to drive it towards its destined sovereignty. Okay. Let me make sure. Dear friends, if you are, just quick reminder, if you are not speaking, just remember to mute yourself so there's no feedback. Okay?
Yeah, you know.
Oh, dear Tesfaye, please, you have a question.
Well, it's usually, you know, observing this presentation so far. We've been going through 29 slides almost. So there are something, sorry, that come to my mind is, you know, when you go to the slide 11, is almost at the end of the slide, it says one phase and one order.
Okay.
So it is humanity, you know, when we are created, we are free. Do humanity need order? And then in the other side, when you are seeing dispensation, every dispensation, they have their own order, each one of them.
Okay.
So now is it says one phase and one order. And what does it mean to be one phase and one order? Is that means unchangeable, or is it to be changed from dispensation to dispensation?
Okay, so great question. Thank you very much, dear Tesfaye. So the order is from, if you think of the manifestation of God, the manifestation of God as a teacher, okay? The manifestation of God as this divine teacher. And all of us are his students in a class, okay? The teacher has to have rules in his class, right? So, and those rules that govern his class is the order, okay? And it's not just in Mr. X's class, it's not in Mr. Y's class, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. That order is a consistent order, you know? So that order is the order that governs faith, the faith of God. An example of that order is, love me that I may love thee. If thou lovest me not, my love can in no wise reach thee. It's that love that we have to, that governs that relationship of the covenant. This is the order, that we have to love him so that his love can return to us. This is order. And just like in nature, in nature there is gravity, right? You cannot stop something from dropping. It drops, okay? And you cannot stop the love of God pouring upon us. This is order. You cannot stop that. It's just continuous. Okay? God's love is continuous. But you can impede something from dropping. You could place something to prevent it from dropping, an object, just like you can make your heart hardened, or you could turn away from the source, right? But you cannot stop the laws that are there. And the laws that are the order is that God's love is constant. He loves his creation. And that all he asks of us is to have that love be reciprocal to him. And this is a continuous, and as we're going to see, this theme of order is continuous. And this is all part of progressive revelation, that every one of these divine souls that have come, each one of them has said, love me that I may love thee. Love me that I may love thee. They have come for the same purpose, to edify, spiritualize, progress humanity, to raise their spiritual consciousness, and to bring a better civilization, each one of them. So, and all they have asked for is love, so that they become followers of man and followers of the spirit. But it's a good question, dear Tesfaye, how on order. And really, the beloved guardian could call of these anything, but he called it the world order of Baha'u'lláh, because this is the same order. It is the order of faith of God. And in this dispensation, there is also order. And this order is showing that all these past faiths, this faith of God is the culmination. And we're going to be exploring how this faith of God is the culmination, the purpose for all the past dispensations. It's a really beautiful thing. And so
sometimes when you are come across with the seekers, when you are telling them the faith of God is one,
right,
and that it is changeless, eternal in the past and eternal in the future, and when you say like that, they don't accept it. They don't like that. It's not one. It's not like that. They start argue and give you hard time. That's why I'm just asking you to make sure that to be clear and everybody understands this point.
It's a very good question, and it depends. It's also how you present it. Okay.
Yeah.
Light is light. Okay. If I put if the light goes through a blue lens, what you see is blue. But if light goes through a red lens, what you see is red. The manifestations of God, when they appeared, they were in different physical attire, and they looked different. They had different names. They came with different messages. But each one of them had eternal truths. So you had to go and find out what did really Lord Buddha say? What did Lord Krishna say? What did His Holiness Jesus Christ say? What did Muhammad say? And not what did their followers say, but what are the eternal truths and how does these revelations tie together? And when you do that yourself, independent investigation of truth, you will see that they all speak with the same voice, the same tongue, and they all have the same message. But each one of them only differ in their truths based upon their time and period. And the intensity of their message differs based upon the capacity of the people at the different times of their revelations. But in essence, their messages all are the same. They all came with the message of love. They all came with the message of advancing their civilizations. So really, it takes, as a real dear testify, it is really, I go back because I want to show this. It takes an unbiased observer to really, when they're studying the message of Baha'u'lláh, they have to not have, blinders on. And if they have blinders on, it's very hard to even touch their heart, because they're already approaching this ocean with their own preconceived ideas. So I leave it there, dear Tesfaye. We got a few more slides for this evening, and I don't want to get into too many more.
And the next question is, I have one more question, is to be, what is dispensation?
Okay, so dispensation is a time period, okay? It is to do with the time period, and I'm going to show you that in a slide, okay? So it's a good question, okay? It means the time period or ministry period. It's a period of time, really, okay?
Okay.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, dear Tesfaye.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on this slide. Thank you so much. In order to discern those evidences, and these evidences of eternal truths, the beloved guardian encourages the observer to ponder on the unique and striking spectacle that has emerged as the result of the development of our faith over this period. So first is ponder, and ponder means think deeply, ponder on this period, this spectacle, and this, the beloved guardian calls this historic events, the rise and efflorescence of the revelation of the Blessed Bab, His Holiness Baha'u'lláh, Abdu'l-Bahá's ministry, and even the guardianship and rise of the administrative order. We need to ponder, deeply meditate, think on this spectacle. And then he says, envisage the conditions surrounding the birth and emergence of the revelations of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh. Envisage means to visualize and the conditions that are surrounding this time period. So close your eyes, meditate deeply, and think. So it's you have to go further than just casually reading it. Then the beloved guardian says, look back at the sorrowful struggles that signalized the emergence of revelation of the Bab and accelerated its progress. So he's saying, study the history, right? Pretty much. Study the history. Where can you study the history? The Dawnbreakers, right? You could read the Dawnbreakers. God Passes By. So these are great sources, dear friends. Study your history. Know your history. And because this is what the beloved guardian is saying. Look back. And now more on these eternal truths. And so this is coming from Abdu'l-Bahá, His Holiness Abdu'l-Bahá in Abdu'l-Bahá on divine philosophy. The eternal truths are those aspects of a revelation that do not change from one dispensation to another. According to Abdu'l-Bahá, the content of every divine revelation can be divided into two parts. Okay, so this is important, dear Tesfaye, you were asking on this. So every divine revelation can be divided into two parts. The first part is essential and belongs to the eternal world. It is the expression of the love of God, the knowledge of God. This is one in all the religions, unchangeable and immutable. So this is how, when you ask, dear Tesfaye, on how are they one? It is because their message is one. They all speak of the same love of God. They all speak of with the knowledge of God. This is one in all the religions, unchangeable and immutable. And there is the eternal truths of a revelation. These are the eternal truths of a revelation. The second part is not eternal. It deals with practical life, transactions and business and changes according to the evolution of man and the requirements of the time of each prophet. So there are the laws and ordinances that are specific for the time, and those are not eternal. But there are specific principles and ordinances from the manifestation that are eternal, that they all speak with the same voice, and this is the eternal truths, according to His Holiness Abdu'l-Bahá in Abdu'l-Bahá on Divine Philosophy. All right, moving on. In the introduction to the Kitab Ahdas, the Universal House of Justice provides further clarification on the meaning of the term, eternal truths. It explains the Kitab Ahdas reiterates those eternal truths enunciated by all the divine messengers. The eternal truths consist of the unity of God, love of one's neighbor, and the moral purpose of earthly life. So here, the Universal House of Justice, in the opening of the Kitab Ahdas, actually clearly states what these eternal truths are: the unity of God, love of one's neighbor, and the moral purpose of earthly life. Okay, so then we're moving to paragraph 2, dear friends. Paragraph 2, checking our time to be punctual. Good. Paragraph 2. The beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi outlines the station of the central figures of the Baha'i faith and underlines the differences in their rank. I love this paragraph, and just because it's so brilliant of the beloved guardian, how he synopsizes His Holiness Baha'u'lláh, the Blessed Bab, and Abdu'l-Bahá in one paragraph. It blows me away every time I read that paragraph. So he says, Baha'u'lláh is the incomparable personage of this revelation who dominates the entire Baha'i dispensation with his unique glory, serenity, majesty. And then united with Baha'u'lláh in the power and authority which shapes the destiny of this dispensation, though subordinate to him in rank, is the Bab. Baha'u'lláh and the Bab are the twin figures of this dispensation. And so you were like, how can the Blessed Bab be subordinate in rank to Baha'u'lláh? It's because Baha'u'lláh is the supreme manifestation of God in this day and age, right? And if you read any of the writings of the Blessed Bab, you constantly read that even all my writings are a gift to Baha'u'lláh. You know, everything that I do is a gift to Baha'u'lláh. And this is really, and when we get to the section on the Blessed Bab, it really, you see that how much the Blessed Bab loved Baha'u'lláh, how much everything he did was for Baha'u'lláh. And then finally, there is Abdu'l-Bahá, who occupies this unique station in all the history of faith of God. I'm not talking just about Baha'i faith. The entire panoply of faith of God, there's no one like Abdu'l-Bahá, who occupies a station entirely different from that of the twin figures, though possessing a glory and power that only manifestations of God are given. His is a station that no individual, however exalted, can ever attain. And something I wanted to put into this presentation that I did is another reason why Abdu'l-Bahá, the beloved guardian, has such a wonderful section on Abdu'l-Bahá. See, Abdu'l-Bahá is why there's such a wonderful section is because the station of Abdu'l-Bahá was very much misunderstood by the Baha'is, not only in the East, but especially by the Baha'is in the West. They thought Abdu'l-Bahá was the return of Christ. They thought he was a prophet. They thought he was the Messiah. They thought he was a prince of Persia. They had no idea who Abdu'l-Bahá was. And I pulled out so many different newspaper articles and things, and you'll see it in the presentation. It's pretty cool. All the different places that they thought Abdu'l-Bahá was this or that. And so I pulled them just so you could see and why Abdu'l-Bahá, the beloved guardian, went to so much to write who is Abdu'l-Bahá, so that the friends have no misconceptions on his station, his rank and title. Okay, so this is another reason. So now in paragraph 3, we started talking about these ages and cycles, the heroic age. So I pulled this. This is these wonderful extracts are coming from a presentation from Baha'i blog. So I pulled these and made these into my own videos for you. Okay. So what is a cycle? Okay. So what is a cycle?
What is a cycle? Abdu'l-Bahá explained that time is comprised of universal cycles that can span hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of years. Abdu'l-Bahā's exact words are that they can span innumerable and incalculable periods and epochs. Within each universal cycle, many manifestations of God appear. Each has a revelation that, like the sun, rises, reaches a zenith, and then declines. When a revelation no longer serves the needs of humanity, a new manifestation of God appears. Abdu'l-Bahá also explains how at the very heart of each universal cycle, there appears a great and universal manifestation. All the manifestations that came prior are in preparation for their advent. All the manifestations who appear after fall under the shadow of their glory. The Adamic cycle, or prophetic cycle, began 6,000 years ago and ended with the dispensation of Muhammad. Baha'u'lláh is a great and universal manifestation, and the Baha'i cycle, or the cycle of fulfillment, began with the coming of his herald, the Bab, and with his own advent. The Baha'i cycle will last 500,000 years and will include many subsequent manifestations of God. When a new manifestation of God arrives, the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh, or Baha'i dispensation, will end, but the Baha'i cycle will continue until another great and universal manifestation arrives. If the individual revelations can be likened to a day, cycles like the Adamic cycle or the Baha'i cycle can be likened to a season like spring or fall, with the universal manifestation as the summer. Several of these cycles make up a universal cycle. So in a sense, there are cycles within cycles, which are also within cycles. If the dispensations can be compared to days, and if the cycle like the Adamic cycle can be compared to a season, then the universal cycles contain years. Mujan Momin, a Baha'i scholar, notes that although time is described as cyclical, it doesn't mean growing, maturing, and then declining and returning to the same beginning point. There is progress. With each manifestation of God, we develop socially and spiritually.
Excellent. So that was just a brief overview of cycles. Okay. The entire history of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh can be divided into 3 ages or stages known as the heroic, the formative, and the golden. And each age on its own consists of a number of epochs. What are ages? Okay, what are ages?
What are ages? The Baha'i era, which includes the dispensations of both the Bab and Baha'u'lláh, or the Babi dispensation and the Baha'i dispensation respectively, has been divided into 3 ages. The first is the primitive, apostolic, or heroic age.
Could you turn up the volume?
1844.
We can't hear.
Of Abdu'l-Bahá in 1921. The second is the iron or formative age, and it's what we are in right now. And the third is the golden age, which the Guardian tells us we can as yet but dimly visualize.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I'll send obviously this presentation to every one of you, dear friends. Okay, so just as mentioned, if you want the presentation, just email myself and the presentation will be sent to you. I apologize if the volume wasn't too loud. So this is a graphic on the different ages of the Baha'i dispensation, okay, and the cycles. So the first period, starting as mentioned, was the Adamic cycle. So started 6,000 years ago. Here is Prophet Adam. There was Noah, Abraham, Moses, His Holiness Zoroaster, Buddha, His Holiness Jesus Christ, Muhammad, and then the Blessed Bab. So this is the Adamic cycle. Kura Adam, 6,000 years. the Blessed Bab, he is the start of the Baha'i dispensation, okay, which will last how long? 500,000 years, not a short amount of time, right? So 500,000 years is the Baha'i cycle, okay? And we'll have an indefinite number of future revelations after His Holiness Baha'u'lláh. So this period is all going to be under the Baha'i cycle, and it's called the cycle of fulfillment because all these past revelations spoke about this day, the greatness of this day. This is the day of God. Okay. Now, this the ministries of the Blessed Bab starting in 1844, and his ministry ended in 1853, even though he was martyred in 1850. Then Baha'u'lláh, his ministry 1853 to 1892, 1892 to 1921, really to about 1923 with the passing of the greatest holy leaf. This is the period of the heroic age, okay? So 1844 to, in this diagram, they say 1921, okay? And then now we're in the formative age from that period of 1921 and on, okay? And as we know, the passing of the beloved guardian, November 4th, 1957, and then 1963, the election of the first body of the Supreme Body, Universal House of Justice. And all of this falls in the formative age. So this was just a nice illustration, but I have an even better one, so I'll show you that coming up, okay? So what are epochs? I've heard this term before. What are these epochs? Okay, so it's a nice explanation. And I'm gonna move my microphone so you can hear it better, okay? Let me do that. Here we go.
What are epochs? Each of these ages is further divided into epochs. According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, an epoch is an event, or a time marked by an event that begins a new period or development. It can also be an extended period of time, usually characterized by a distinctive development or by a memorable series of events. The heroic age is divided into 3 epochs, each corresponding to the ministries of the Bab, Baha'u'lláh, and Abdu'l-Bahá. Although Shoghi Effendi also writes that the epoch of the Master's ministry concluded with the passing of the greatest holy leaf, Bahia Khanum. The formative age has thus far been divided into 5 epochs. The first epoch was from 1921 to 1946. This period of history includes how the Guardian orchestrated the setup of the administrative order. The second epoch was from 1946 to 1963. This period is marked by the global spread of the faith and concludes with the election of the Universal House of Justice. The third epoch is from 1963 to 1986. Mujan Momin writes that this epoch was characterized by the emergence of the Baha'i faith from obscurity and the initiation of social and economic development plans. The fourth epoch was from 1986 to 2001. This epoch encapsulates the maturation of the institutions of the faith and ended with the International Conference of Counselors and Auxiliary Board members that inaugurated the opening of the International Teaching Center. And in a letter to the Baha'is of the world dated 16 January 2001, the Universal House of Justice described that conference and wrote that the faith of Baha'u'lláh now enters the 5th epoch of its formative age. In the recent Rezwan message, the Universal House of Justice writes, "Many will be familiar with how the Guardian divided the ages of the faith into consecutive epochs. The 5th epoch of the formative age began in 2001. Less well known is that the Guardian also made specific reference to there being epochs of the divine plan and stages within those epochs. Held in abeyance for 2 decades, while local and national organs of the administrative order were being raised up and strengthened, the divine plan conceived by Abdu'l-Bahá was formally inaugurated in 1937 with the commencement of the first stage of its first epoch, the 7-year plan assigned by the Guardian to the North American Baha'i community. This first epoch closed after the conclusion of the 10-year crusade in 1963, which had resulted in the banner of the faith being planted across the world. The opening stage of the second epoch was the first 9-year plan, and no less than 10 plans have followed in its wake, plans that have ranged in duration from 12 months to 7 years. At the dawn of this second epoch, the Baha'i world was already witnessing the earliest beginnings of that entry into the faith by troops that had been foreseen by the author of the divine plan. In the succeeding decades, generations of devoted believers within the community of the greatest name have labored in the divine vineyard to cultivate the conditions required for sustained, large-scale growth. And at this glorious season of Rizwan, how abundant are the fruits of those labors. The phenomenon of sizable numbers swelling the activities of the community, catching the spark of faith, and swiftly arising to serve at the leading edge of the plan, has moved from being a forecast sustained by faith to a recurring reality. Such a pronounced and demonstrable advance demands to be marked in the annals of the cause. With elated hearts, we announce that the third epoch of the Master's divine plan has begun. Stage by stage, epoch after epoch, shall his plan unfold until the light of the kingdom illumines every heart.
Okay. We're just reaching 8:30. So this is a very short one. It says, how are epochs divided? And then I'll show you the slide that really helps you understand of all of this. And then we'll close it down for tonight because we reached 8:30 and we just want to try to stay as punctual as we can. So this is how are epochs divided.
Each epoch is divided by a series of stages or plans, as we have seen in the quotation from the 2021 Rizwan message. With the conclusion of the 5-year plan, we have just launched the 1-year plan, which will be followed by a 9-year plan. What's interesting to note is that cycles, ages, epochs, and plans or stages is one framework that Baha'is use to mark time and development. And the other way of charting time is with the Baha'i calendar.
Okay. So this is a wonderful illustration. And I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but this is a wonderful illustration, up to date. So at the very top, okay, of the illustration, this is the unfoldment of the Baha'i faith. You can see Baha'i cycle, okay, starting with 1844. The bottom says 1844. The Baha'i cycle will last 500,000 years, okay? Then there's the Baha'i era. It comprises of the dispensations of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh. The dispensation of Baha'u'lláh is destined to last 1,000 years. So the ministry of Baha'u'lláh will last 1,000 years, okay? Now the periods of the heroic age, formative age, and then the golden age. The heroic age is comprised of the ministry of the Bab, Baha'u'lláh, and Abdu'l-Bahá, okay? And each one of these periods in the heroic age, there was 3 epochs within the heroic age, namely the ministry of the Bab, the ministry of Baha'u'lláh, ministry of Abdu'l-Bahá. Then the period of the formative age we are in the 5th epoch, okay? The first epoch started passing of Abdu'l-Bahá. Then there is the 2nd epoch starting in 1946, then 3rd epoch, and then 4th epoch, and then the 5th epoch was in 2001, okay? So, but interestingly, dear friends, there's 3 epochs. We're just entered into the 3rd epoch under the tablets of the divine plan. This is under the tablets of the divine plan, which started when the first 7-year plan emerged, okay? And first 7-year plan was 1937. So the first epoch, it was inaugurated in 1937 under the first 7-year plan. And then in 1963, right after the 10-year crusade and the election of the Universal House of Justice, the 2nd epoch came into being. And now in this recent Rizwan message, how exciting, 2021, we are now entering into the 3rd epoch under the tablets of the divine plan, marked with a 1-year plan and then entering into a 9-year plan. So this is a brief visual showing you this how these ages and cycles and eras are all linked. So it gives you a better visual understanding of this. Okay. That's enough for tonight, dear friends. We'll close it down from there because we're a little bit over. But in our next class, we will finish up on the ages and cycles, and then we'll get into your homework will be paragraphs 4 and 5 for next week. And dear friends, just for your own reference, as you continue the course, obviously some paragraphs might have not that much, per se. I could only do so much input in content, but there's some paragraphs that I could put 200 slides on. And so you'll see how some parts will have a lot of content and some will not have as much. When it's not as much, we might put 2 parts together in a section. Okay, so just letting you know ahead of time. Any questions at this point before we close it down for tonight? And really, thank you, every one of you, for being.
I just want to highlight, some points here that is to be what I'm wondering, about the subordinate of the Bab.
Yes.
Because Bab is, he is younger than Baha'u'lláh, and then he is also the forerunner. And I just wonder how that happened. When you come to the age, Bab is younger than Baha'u'lláh.
Okay.
And Baha'u'lláh is older than him.
Okay.
And then Bab is a gate. And Baha'u'lláh is a messenger of God and coming after him. I don't know what's the mystery of this, how this happened. It's up to God, maybe. I don't know.
It's got nothing to do with their age. That's beside the point. The aspect is the blessed Bab, they both have the title of manifestation of God in their own right. The blessed Bab's, one of his honors and per se duties was to bring the message of Baha'u'lláh to the awareness of humanity and prepare the way for His Holiness Baha'u'lláh to be the harbinger of that revelation that was going to come. Then that's why it says the brief and intense period of the ministry of the Bab. It was brief, it was short, but the role and revelation of the Bab was literally like the blinding flash. It's when you open the curtains, the light suddenly pouring in. That is the revelation of the Bab, the light pouring in and hitting your eyes. But what is the revelation of Baha'u'lláh? It's when the whole curtains are open and the light is just there. That is the revelation of Baha'u'lláh. It is the fullness of the curtains open and all the light is pouring in. The blessed Bab is saying, hey, humanity, you've been living in darkness. Let's open these curtains. And now the light is starting to emerge into the world and saying, yes, there's now a new dawn, a new awakening, a new coming of the messengers of God. And he's opening the curtains and preparing humanity for the coming of the revelation and fulfillment of God's universal manifestation, the one that all revelations have been calling upon and been awaiting for. And so this is the role and honor and privilege, really. This is the words of the blessed Bab. He says, "I'm my privilege to be, preparing the way for he whom God shall make manifest." So really, of course, they all speak with the same tongue. They abide upon the same throne. They speak with that same voice. But the station of His Holiness Baha'u'lláh as the supreme manifestation, they differ in the intensity of their revelation. And we're going to explore that, the intensity of the revelation that comes up in Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. How is Baha'u'lláh the supreme universal manifestation? And saying one is subordinate in rank than another. I thought they were all equal, but no. Baha'u'lláh differs in intensity of the revelation. It's literally like the light is pouring forth from the orifice more during this time period. So there's more light pouring down during this point in time. So this is, at one point, it was not much light and it was just pouring. And now the orifice in this day and age is all of it's pouring down. So this is the ministry of Baha'u'lláh. So really, that's how they differ. But the message, the teachings, the same voice. You follow? That's... Anyway, dear friends, we're a little bit over past due as always. But any other questions? Any other questions, and we can close it down. I see a few friends yawning as the hour is getting later and later. So yes, my dear Farzad Jan, I love you. So any other questions? And then we'll shut it down and have a closing prayer.
I'd like to say the closing prayer when it's time.
Excellent. Thank you, Zamrui Jan. Okay, so that was your first introduction to Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. So there you go, dear friends. And your homework is reading paragraphs 4 and 5. Okay, excellent. I will send you the recording and have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much, every one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
O Lord, my God, assist thy loved ones to be firm in thy faith, to walk in thy ways, to be steadfast in thy cause. Give them thy grace to withstand the onslaught of self and passion, to follow the light of divine guidance. Thou art the powerful, the gracious, the self-subsisting, the bestower, the compassionate, the almighty, the all-bountiful. Abdu'l-Bahá. Thank you.
Thank you, every one of you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Farzad Jan.
Thank you.